Hello and welcome to Everything E.M, your YouTube channel for Cambridge Environmental Management. In these content videos, we work through the syllabus step by step to make sure that you've got everything covered without wasting any time. Here we go. Today we are covering topic 1.1, learning all about rock formation and the rock cycle. You can find the latest syllabus document on the Cambridge International website, and I've also put the link in the description for you. Many of my students find this first part of the syllabus a little bit tedious and not particularly interesting, but we'll go through it quickly and we'll make sure that we've covered all the basics. The key idea is that rocks are not fixed forever. Over millions of years, rocks are constantly being formed, broken down, changed, and reformed. There are three main types of rocks. We've got igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. The difference between them is not just what they look like, but how they form. Igneous rocks form when molten rock cools and solidifies. The molten rock below the Earth's surface is of course called magma, and when it reaches the surface it's called lava. I'm sure everyone knows that already. Sedimentary rock forms from sediments, and these are small pieces of broken rock, shells or plant material, and over time these sediments are deposited into layers, squeezed together and cemented into solid rock. Metamorphic rocks form when existing rocks are changed by heat and pressure underground. Now it's important to remember that the change does happen underground, but the heat that we're talking about is not to the temperature where it's actually melting the rock. So the rock changes, but it's not melted. Otherwise it would be igneous rocks. So igneous rocks form from cooling molten rock. Sedimentary rocks form from layers of sediment, and metamorphic rocks form when existing rocks are changed by heat and pressure. And this is of course called the rock cycle. For this syllabus, the igneous rocks you need to know are granite and basalt. Igneous rock form when molten rock cools and becomes solid. The cooling speed is what affects the size of the crystals. Granite is an intrusive igneous rock. Intrusive means it forms inside the earth. Magma cools slowly underground, so the crystals have a very long time to grow. This forms large interlocking crystals, so granite is coarse-grained. On the other hand, basalt is an extrusive igneous rock. Extrusive means it forms on the Earth's surface. Lava cools quickly at the surface, so the crystals do not have as much time to grow, and this forms small crystals, so basalt is fine-grained. Remember, slow cooling gives large crystals, and fast cooling gives small crystals. For this syllabus, the sedimentary rocks you need to know are limestone, sandstone, and shale. Sedimentary rocks form from sediments. Sediments are small pieces of broken rock, shells, or plant materials. Let's look at the full process. First, existing rocks are broken down by weathering and erosion, and then the small particles are moved by water, wind, ice, or gravity, and this is called transportation. When the particles are deposited and settle in a new place, this is called deposition. Over time, the layers build up, and this is called sedimentation. The weight of the layers above then squeezes the sediments together, and this is called compaction. Minerals then join the particles together, and this is called cementation, and eventually the sediments become sedimentary rocks, as we can see in this image here. Limestone often forms from the calcium carbonate remains of marine organisms, such as shells and skeletons. Sandstone, like the name says, usually forms from compacted sand particles, and shale forms from very fine clay or mud particles that are compacted into layers. Sedimentary rocks often have visible layers called strata and may contain fossils. For this syllabus, the metamorphic rocks you need to know are marble and slate. Metamorphic rocks form when existing rocks are changed by heat and pressure deep underground. The rock does not melt. If it melted, it would have turned into igneous rock. Instead, in metamorphism, the rock stays solid, but its minerals and structure change. When limestone is changed by heat and pressure, it becomes marble. Marble is usually harder and more crystalline than limestone. And when shale is changed by heat and pressure, it becomes slate. Slate is fine-grained and often splits into thin layers. We usually see these changes where tectonic plates are pushed together and rocks are buried, heated, and squeezed. What provides the energy for the changes in the rock? It would be the heat and the pressure. And what kind of changes happen inside the rock? The minerals and the structure change. The rock cycle shows how rocks can change from one type to another over very long periods of time. And it's called a cycle because there's no single starting point and, of course, no final ending point. What we usually, if we could start somewhere, we could start with either metamorphic rock or igneous rock, and we can talk about the weathering and the erosion that takes place. And when smaller particles have been broken from the original rock, it is of course transported and deposited together through water or ice or wind, and these sediment particles can then be compacted and cemented, which will then form sedimentary rock, right? So if any rock, whether it's igneous or sedimentary rock, undergoes heat and pressure, we will have metamorphic rock forming. If any of the rocks melt through either magma or lava, then we will have igneous rocks forming, and the crystallization that takes place will form either smaller crystals or larger crystals depending on how fast the cooling is. Permeability is the ability of water to pass through the pore spaces of rock and soil. Pores are tiny spaces inside the rock or soil. If the spaces are connected, it means that the water can move through and the rock is then called permeable. If the pores are very small or not connected, or the rock is made of tightly packed crystals, water cannot pass through easily and the rock is called impermeable. Permeability is important because it affects groundwater. Permeable rocks can store and transmit water, which can form aquifers, where impermeable rocks can stop or slow the movement of water. An important exam note then is don't just say that water can go through rocks in the exams, rather say that water is able to pass through the pore spaces of the rock. The syllabus wants us to classify the rocks as permeable or impermeable. Most sedimentary rocks are permeable because they often have pore spaces between the particles. So for this syllabus, you need to know that limestone and sandstone are treated as permeable. Sandstone is permeable because it is made of sand grains with spaces between them, and limestone is permeable because it often has cracks and can dissolve slightly in water, forming channels and caves. Impermeable are igneous rocks such as granite and basalt. because their crystals are so tightly interlocked, it leaves very few connected pore spaces. Metamorphic rocks, such as marble and slate, are also impermeable because of the heat and the pressure that makes them so dense and compact. And then we have our anomaly, which is shale. Shale is a sedimentary rock, but it is impermeable because it has very fine clay particles that were packed so closely together that water cannot pass through easily. Before we finish, let's check the key vocabulary. Igneous rock is rock formed when magma or lava cools and solidifies. Metamorphic rock is rock that is changed by heat and pressure without melting. Permeability is the ability of water to pass through pore spaces in rock or soil. The rock cycle is the continuous process by which rocks are formed, broken down, changed, and reformed over time. Sedimentary rock is rock formed from layers of sediment that has been compacted and cemented together. I have the full list of important terms and definitions for this section to download from the website. Well done. You've now completed topic 1.1, Formation of Rocks. You can find study notes, the worksheet, and flashcards for this topic on my website. The link is in the description below. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments, and if not, I'll see you in the next lesson.